Good evening, elected members, members of staff, members of the public, both here joining us in person, and we are streaming live for those who are joining online as well. Before we get started, councillors, we have had a request from Councillor Gassett to join electronically. He has advised the location there, and that is as per the council policy, so I have approved that request. Can you hear us there, Councillor Gassett?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So that, Councillor Gassett is approved. So I will open this meeting, and doing so, I would like to acknowledge that the traditional owners of the land, the Noongar Wadandi people, and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all members of the Aboriginal community and to their culture, and to elders past, present and emerging. Thank you. Just the one announcement from me. We do have our MLC member here, Rod Caddies. Thank you for joining us from the upper house. Thank you, Rod. And then we do have some apologies, or not apologies, sorry. Councillor Steck and Councillor Steele are both on approved leave. We have received the declaration of interest from Councillor Ramesh, as he did last week, and Mr McRobert isn't here this week. Is there any other declaration of interest for tonight's meeting? And Councillor Gassett, I can see you, so if you've got any points, just if you raise your hand, that's fine, thank you. I should have noted as well, for those joining us, I know there's a few new faces here. This is an official OCM, so this is a decision-making process. We'll be working through the council agenda for tonight and making decisions based on that. We haven't received anything from public question time. Could I please have a move that the previous minutes are true and correct? Thank you, Councillor Quain. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Ramesh. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. Thank you. That is carried unanimously. Thank you. I understand we have received a petition.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Petition, Bunbury needs a homeless shelter now. We, the petitioners, are calling on the WA State Government to take immediate action and deliver an emergency investment in our homeless shelter to Bunbury. There are 1,142 paper signatures and 1,208 digital, with a total of 2,350 and a breakdown of where those signatures are located in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm assuming you're moving now, Councillor Turner.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Is there a seconder to that? Councillor Quain, sorry, first Councillor Gassett. There was a few up as well. I'll put that we accept the petition. Those in favour, please indicate. So that's carried unanimous. So I've explained to the petitioners, but for those who are also interested, that petition will be submitted through the CEO now, and the CEO will provide a report back to council within the next 2 rounds for obviously any report for council to consider at that time. So within 2 rounds, and we'll make sure we'll keep the petitioners updated. Thank you. We have received a request for a deputation. It's not on the board here, but that was for Mr. Gary Fitzgerald on item 10.4.1. I'll put that. Those who are in favour of hearing that petition, please indicate. That's carried. So, Mr. Fitzgerald, when we get to that item, we'll invite you to speak. So, councillors, the method of dealing with the agenda for this evening. At this stage, the only item coming out for further discussion was that 10.4.1, as we've now had that deputation. Was there any other items for discussion? We'll deal with it when we get to it. So 10.4.1, was there any other items to come out for discussion? If that's the case, somebody want to move the remainder? Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Second, Councillor Quain. I'll put that. Those in favour, please indicate. That's carried unanimously. So, for those, I know there was a couple here who are joining for one of the items around Truett Brook. Just so you're aware, that item has now been passed as written by the executive, which is in the report, which is to refer that for decision making through WAPC. So that item has now been carried and moved and going through that next process. I'm happy for any staff members to explain that. I'll have a further conversation with you guys after this meeting. Thank you. So we move along to item 10.4.1. And we have the deputation from Mr Fitzgerald.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors. Thank you very much for the opportunity again to speak. I appreciate council meetings. It's not usual. I certainly don't want to take up much of your time. Firstly, I'd just like to say in reading the alternative recommendations that's presented to you tonight, which we hadn't seen up to tonight, we would applaud council and all the efforts that's been put into the review, the processing of this to get to at least a position of providing an alternative recommendation. I would like just to point out too, because I appreciate in the discussion over the last week or so, there's been the suggestion of potentially a deferral. I think it's just important representing the owners or the potential buyers of the site, Sasha and Joe, that would be completely detrimental to their business just purely because of contractual obligations. They would basically not be able to operate. They'd be closing down their business and wouldn't have anywhere to go. So I appreciate you guys, the council have to make decisions, but I think what we'd be urging, if it's at all possible tonight, we would love for a recommendation to be put forward. Obviously, the alternative recommendation to support it. So again, council, as I say, we applaud council in their efforts, staff and executive, and councillors working towards an alternative, and in particular noting the proactive nature of recommendation 2, and as much that the CEO to be looking for other sites within that area for public car parking, which just adds to, we believe, hopefully the viability of that area. There would be just one, and again, this is linked to how this whole process would function as far as Mr Lewis, who's the adjoining landowner where the reciprocal parking arrangements occur. I note condition D with reference to a legal agreement must be to the satisfaction to the city in accordance with 41, in accordance with the policy. I think, and the CEO's explained to us in just what the intent of that is, but I suppose in looking at the policy, we just wanted to be clear with council that an option of revisiting the sites on Mr Lewis's site to make those comply couldn't be facilitated. The agreement would fall apart. So as we understand it, that condition or that reference in condition D would link to effectively the condition which refers to line marking of the existing car parking bays on the site. So that way what we have is the existing car parking bays on Mr Lewis's site, the bays on the proponent's site, reciprocal agreement for use of both of those based on the conditions that are in your recommendation tonight. So just those two items, council, if at all, you can give consideration to if there was a suggestion for deferral, that would be problematic. And secondly, just so that we can be sure that to make that function, it's the existing bays within the two sites as they currently show, without a revisit of any bays on the adjoining site, Mr Lewis's site. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr Fitzgerald. And I might just ask, given there was that briefing note and alternative recommendation passed away, and we will, obviously, when we get this on the table, we'll deal with the executive first, but I might just ask the CEO if you just wanted to make any comments around that information circulated this afternoon.
Thank you, Mayor. So as has been outlined, we have prepared a briefing note that tries to capture all of the issues associated with this, and central to this is the reciprocal parking arrangement that we've been trying to get in place for this site. So we've also outlined an alternative recommendation. So there is a recommendation from the staff that suggests that you could defer, but we've obviously heard from the applicant their comments around that. The alternate recommendation, if council was of mind to support it, what I wanted to make sure that there was a recommendation that we had been clearly thought through, so that you weren't trying to do that in the meeting. The reciprocal parking arrangements do relate to the site as it is, and you can clearly see there is some constraints within that site, and there is issues in terms of the sizing of those bays, but it would be around making sure that they are at least marked properly, even though some of those constraints that are outlined in the report. So if councillors, there is also point 2, which has been referred to about looking at parking more generally in that area that I think needs to be considered as well. So happy to take any questions, Mayor, but what we've tried to do is give council an option if they were to approve. There is an alternative recommendation, notwithstanding there's still the ability to defer this despite some of the other comments.
Sure. Before I do ask for any move vote, given that there was some new information they provided, was there any questions before we get into this item?
Yes, Mick, are we able to see the second recommendation?
alternative? Well,
Yes, please.
What we'll do is, before we do that, Councillor Turner, we'll start the debate, and when it's brought up, we can bring that up. Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move a procedural motion that we defer this item for one round.
Sure. So is there a seconder to that? Councillor Brown? So, elected members, there's been a procedural motion now that this item be deferred. In this instance, the Speaker may speak to that motion, but there'll be no further debate on that. We'll vote to that after the Speaker speaks. Thank you, Councillor Andrew.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just quickly, I do appreciate the urgency as discussed by the planners and all the information that's been provided. However, I do believe that the staff have been asking for this parking matter to be dealt with 6 months ago. What we have at the moment, I feel, is we basically have a salesman coming up to us selling us a house. And they're selling us a house and they're saying, don't worry about the car parking. I know there's no carport with this one, but the neighbours around there, they've got a big garage, go park in theirs. So until we've sorted out and have clear legal sign-off on the reciprocal car parking, I don't want to see us end up again where we ended up with the Keys and the parade. Who can remember the Keys and the parade with the happy wife when they had parking people sitting out the front on private parking telling people they can't park there? Because whilst there is plenty of parking, and I know there's plenty of parking, and you know I love Joe's Curry House, the parking is, most of the car parking around there is private property. And it's very important. So all we're asking is for us to take a breather, to work with the applicant, to make sure that we can take this forward and deliver the right outcome for the community, for the businesses in that area, without imposing on other people's property the expectation that people can park on there, and without getting us into a point in the future where someone decides to change something and all of a sudden we lose all of the parking at the plaza or the hotel across the road or something changes. So let's just take a pause and bring it back with the correct information and move forward.
Thank you. So, councillors, we are voting on this deferral for one round. Those in favour of deferral, please indicate. Those against, that is lost. That procedural motion is lost. So, councillors, we have an executive recommendation in front of us. Is there a mover for the executive recommendation as written in the report? So this is the executive recommendation right in front of us now, which is for refusal. Councillor Brown? Is there a seconder to this? Councillor Andrew? Councillor Brown?
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff and gallery. As a business owner myself and having grown up only 100 metres away from the site, I would love to see this successful business flourish, especially in this location that has been run down for many years. But in saying that, my issue is parking and private property. As councillors, we cannot assume that just because a property is not being used, it gives the green light for someone else to use it. Perhaps if you ask, you may find a sympathetic ear that allows you to use that property. Car parks require maintenance and occasionally replacement, and if you have been given permission to utilise that person's property, it would be proper to make some contribution to the repairs and the resurfacing of that site. Reciprocal parking arrangements are generally long-lasting and inevitably lead to easements which are noted on the certificate of title, which limit an owner's rights on land and can affect the security value of the property. They have serious implications and should not be taken lightly. At present, an official right-of-way runs directly outside the rear of the buildings fronting Spencer Street. However, 3 of the lots are claiming it is their parking areas. What happens when the reciprocal parking agreement is set in place with car parks built and access is then denied from Beach Road? Where is the consideration for disability parking and pick-up areas for the Uber transport? In the space of about 1,900 square metres, there are 7 different adjoining landowners. I think there needs to be a lot more thinking about the practicalities and actual meaningful communications with all the parties that are affected by the changes that have been suggested, because they all have practical implications. I think there is a solution to the problem, but it hasn't been presented. I'm supporting the executive recommendation not to approve the application in its current form. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess just going on what I said, also as the chair, I guess, of the Disability and Access Inclusion Working Group, it does concern me deeply that we're about to approve a project which doesn't have the right ACROD parking and access for disability and wheelchair access. Again, I do highlight the fact that we're not disagreeing with the application. What we're disagreeing is the current outcome, which is not to have the parking sorted. That's all. We fully support, and I believe I support, activation in that area. However, we can't just have activation for activation's sake. It needs to be done in the right and thoughtful processes so it doesn't affect other business owners and other people who have invested in the area and the resources that they've poured into an area. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, can you just hit your mic, please, as well? Just getting a little echo there. Thank you. Is there a speaker against the executive recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Kozisek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors and gallery. I've worried over this all day because as a previous small business owner, I know how difficult it is to get through the red tape to move a business. I've done that. It's an extremely difficult and stressful thing to do. And knowing that the applicant is shortly to run out of a lease and needs to know what their future is, I think that we are going to miss an opportunity if we don't allow them to move forward. We have been given an opportunity to have some reciprocal parking shown, and I know it's not a definite solution, but I think that we can work through this. The alternative recommendation certainly gives us lots of options there. The executive recommendation actually says that they are refusing this application based on the shortfall in car parking bays required without a reciprocal agreement in place. From my understanding, that reciprocal agreement is probably going to fall into place tomorrow or the next day. So we are almost there, but I'm certainly not in a place that we want to defer the decision. I think we need to move forward. I think that understanding that the neighbouring building, number 96, is happy to make an agreement but has not been able to get signatures. As I say, I just think that we will miss a fabulous opportunity to activate the space. And I will say that as a teenager, which wasn't that long ago, let's be fair, but I remember driving up from Manjimup with my mum to come to the new Plaza shopping centre. Like, it was the place to be. It was exciting. There was no Centre Point then. It was the Plaza was the place to come shopping, believe me. And as a young girl, that was very exciting. I think we can achieve that again. We can make that area something that we are proud of, something that doesn't attract antisocial behaviour and some of the reckless destruction of property that's been going on. I think we have this really great opportunity for a successful business, and I must point out this is really key. It's not a new business opening and they're a bit iffy, will they succeed, will they won't. This is a very successful Indian restaurant, best Indian in town, that is prepared to move into that location. They're going to bring all their clientele with them. They're going to make that area so busy and so activated, and to use the word that Mr. Fitzgerald used last week, it's the start of gentrification of an area. And I really think if we don't help this get through tonight, we're missing a really fantastic opportunity that may not come along again. So I do not approve of the executive recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. So, and Councillor Kozak, just to clarify, you foreshadowed the alternative recommendation should this recommendation be defeated. Sure. Is there a speaker for the executive recommendation? Councillor Brown? All good. So, councillors, I'll put this executive recommendation and note that there's been a foreshadowed alternative should it be defeated. Those in favour of the executive recommendation, please indicate. Those against? The executive recommendation is lost. Councillor Kozasek, you indicated you had a proposed alternative recommendation. Just ask if we could bring that up, which is here, or which is the executive recommendation for approval based on the number of conditions. Councillor Kozasek, you've moved that. I'll just ask for a seconder first. Councillor Turner, thank you. Councillor Kozasek.
I have to apologise. I wrote 4 pages of notes based on previous discussions, so it's changed a little bit now. So if I repeat myself or I say something that doesn't seem quite right, it's just because I've written notes, so sorry. Okay, as I said, I'm really reluctant to not support a small business, successful small business, moving into a great location that gives us the opportunity to activate that area in South Bunbury. I'm sure any Bunbury locals will remember, especially if they're about my age, when the plaza opened and how vibrant that area was. We have the opportunity to do something really amazing there. So I know the existing parking bays out the back have been a bone of contention, but I think that's something that can be sorted with discussion. And just a comment, if you had an aerial view of the surrounding areas, it'll show you some very, very large bitumen car parks. Now, I understand that these are all private car parks, and I understand the point of view that, you know, that's not necessarily the going thing, but we all know that people are lazy and they will park in whatever parking bay is closest and the most amenable to where they need to be. I do think that we have an opportunity, especially if you look at the last note, advice note, number 2 of the alternative recommendation, that the Chief Executive Officer investigates the potential viability of public car parking within the vicinity. Now, I don't believe that suggests that we build any more car parks, because I think we have more than enough bitumen happening there, but I think it suggests that we have a conversation with some of the owners of those car parks about how we can make them more available to more businesses in the area and make it equitable so that not one private owner is paying for the maintenance of car parks, etc. So I just think that's something that's really worth considering. Sorry, next page, because that next bit's just not relevant. Okay, Joe's Curry House is in its existing location, relies totally on street parking, and at times I know I've had to park in the Officeworks car park just simply so that I can get a curry meal. So, as I say, we will find a place to park regardless of whether it's private property or not. If we want something, that's what we will do. I'm not saying it's necessarily right, but I know how I think and how my husband thinks. My husband will drive around the block 4 times to find the closest spot. That's just the way it is. So surely a successful restaurant will have a positive effect on the neighbourhood, especially nighttime experiences, sustaining an 18-hour economy, improving passive surveillance, safety, and reducing crime and antisocial behaviour. Nighttime dining experiences add vibrancy to a neighbourhood, so filling vacant premises must add value to all of the surrounding buildings and all of the surrounding businesses, retail or whatever. The revitalisation of empty buildings is the first step to gentrification of an area. We have an ideal opportunity for a small but very successful business to activate a space largely unused after 5 p.m. So we're talking about a space that between 5 and 9 is going to have maybe 30 or 40 cars there. There's plenty of places to park. I know they are private, but that won't stop the average punter out there. They will park wherever. I think as councillors, we have the capacity to make this happen. We've talked about activating spaces in our city. We have several places that just are not great places to be, and I know we all know which ones I'm talking about. This is a fantastic opportunity to reactivate, to all the things that we talk about doing in activating a space. And I have to commend the staff. I fully understand and appreciate the position that they have been obliged to adhere to here and the work that they have put in, but I just think we can move forward in this in another way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't think there's much more that needs to be said because I think Councillor Kozisek has said it all and pretty sure we know which way the vote's going to go. Today I went to the Bunbury Chinese restaurant and there's no parking out the front of that restaurant, and if you're lucky there might be two directly out the front, but that's about it. So pretty much every restaurant you go to in the CBD there isn't a lot of parking, so this isn't too dissimilar to that. I really want to see that area activated, especially around the vibrations. Old derelict building and eyes on the street at night will hopefully keep the crime and the antisocial behaviour away. Also with the video store, likely to have new people moving in there as well. You know, it'd be nice to see that area be a lot more activated. There's conditions that I'm sure Joe's Curry proprietors will follow and do the right thing and get the legal requirements organised. Nowadays there's also a lot of menu logs, so there's not a lot of cars pulling up. It's just people coming, getting the food and going. So yeah, fully support it. And we've passed a lot of drive-through, you know, coffee shops and all that, and there isn't a lot of car spaces there, but we've passed them, so I don't know why we would see any difference in this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a speaker against this alternative, now executive recommendation? Thank you. I'll put that. Those in favour of the executive recommendation, please indicate. Those against, one against, that executive recommendation is now a council resolution for approval. Thank you. That does bring us to a close, councillors. Thank you all very much for your attendance. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the evening and rest of the week. Thank you very much. I declare this meeting closed.